Welcome to the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with international medical charity Operation Smile. If you can help us achieve our goal of creating 100 new smiles, please donate at emearecruitment.com/operation-smile. In this episode, we speak to Rubén Alejandro Ramirez, Group Head Diversity and Inclusion at Syngenta. Ruben explains how we can all champion diversity, equity, and inclusion in our organizations by taking action.
So hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment Podcast in partnership with our good friends over at Operation Smile. As Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Ruben onto the podcast today. So hopefully you can still hear me okay, can you?
Yes, I can. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Very good, very good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Having great weather here in Switzerland and also kind of starting the summer. So it's great times coming ahead.
This is true. We're recording this mid-July in 2022, and it's in the middle of a bit of a heat wave today. So hopefully none of the questions will make you sweat too much. But I think there's some very interesting ones in here. You know, some of the questions we've had from our network externally, some internally as well. So I think we've got some good questions to run through with you today, Ruben.
Yes, I'm looking forward. I'm actually really excited to be here with you today, and also looking forward for the comments of our audience.
Perfect. That sounds great. So basically, the way I usually like to kick off the podcast is keep it quite lighthearted and to settle you into the conversation a little bit, if you like. And obviously, Rose has mentioned that the podcast and a lot of the work that EMEA does is in partnership with Operation Smile. So I thought I'd just ask you what the last thing was that made you smile, Ruben.
Well, I think that the thing that made me smile today is as always waking up next to my husband and just having those 20 minutes where we start our day by having some meditation time and then just waking up and making some jokes to each other. So that's the thing that makes me smile almost every day, or maybe every day, and it did today as well.
That's good to hear, and I'm sure your husband will be pleased to hear this as well. You know, it's always better to wake up smiling than it is to wake up arguing. Huh?
Yes, exactly. We have this thing where we try not to go angry to bed and just to resolve any situation before going to sleep. And I think this has helped us a lot, just to keep our relation in the healthiest condition as possible.
No, that's excellent. And I know one of the things we're going to talk about a bit later on is the great career that you've had. And I know some areas of interest would be why you chose to take the path and the career you did and what's really driven and motivated you to do that. So these are questions that we will cover a bit later on. But I thought I'd just start by asking you what it feels like to now be in this current role that you hold at Syngenta, because if the audience are not aware, Ruben is now the Group Head of Diversity and Inclusion at the Syngenta Group, close to 2 years in this position. So I thought I'd just ask you really what it feels like to be in this role now.
Well, there are many feelings by being the Group Head of D&I for the Syngenta Group. I think one of them is accomplishment. Because as you may know, I started my career being a marketing professional, and I was doing a successful career in marketing in Latin America. However, when I had the opportunity to be appointed for this position, somehow all my professional experience met with my path of purpose in life, right? I was looking for some way to really help my community, my society, and also to make a little bit better the world where we live. And by having this position, I've been giving that opportunity. And it's like almost like a gift, because I have been able to really apply some of my knowledge in marketing to deliver messages that are really important for everyone when we talk about diversity, inclusion, equity, respect, about us being more compassionate about the people we work with, and also we can extend those messages to our family and to our society. So it's been a great roller coaster of feelings, but I think the one I can describe the most is this feeling of being in a stage of my life where I feel that I'm doing not only something for me and for my professional life, but I'm also doing things that help families, that help employees, not only to have a career where they can thrive and be their own self, but also where they can really work on their self-esteem and acceptance on who they are and how those unique skills or capabilities that we all have can help us just to fulfill our dreams, our goals, and our purpose.
Well, it's really interesting to hear, Ruben, because what's clear is that you have an obvious passion for the diversity and inclusion work that you're doing, and you moved into this role, as I mentioned earlier, about 2 years ago. And I think, when I interview other people on the podcast or in other forms, people will talk a bit about maybe a risk that they've taken in their career to follow their heart. So to follow into an area where they really have a passion and a drive for something to be involved in, and something that means a lot to them. So, I mean, obviously, you had a number of years in marketing before you made the move into diversity and inclusion. So was there ever a part of you that did almost a risk assessment on making that move? Because it was a brave and bold move to make that move over to something completely new at quite an experienced level of your career as well.
Yes, there was, and this is a great question because I sometimes keep asking myself where I would go next, right? I am still young. I consider myself still young in my career development. I am 39. I'm having this successful career in D&I now, but I know that there are much more opportunities that I would like to develop and also that I would like to do. And I don't know, part of being in the corporate life, I was always very interested in leading the business and just being in the front line. When deciding to go to D&I, the opportunity was presented, and I was struggling only for the fact that this is my first time belonging to the HR team. I have always been either part of the marketing team or the sales strategy team, and this was a completely new area for me. At some point, I was a bit insecure just to being part of a team, of a leadership team with HR professionals that are the best of the best in our company in the human resources area. And I was coming to marketing without not knowing anything else than just being part of the employees living the experience of the HR team, right? So the struggle was regarding what will come for me after D&I. And I think that that thought really is like I'm able to come over that thought every time I'm working in the different spaces and campaigns and initiatives we have in D&I. I have come to discover that by understanding the way people act and also how they feel and how they think, you are able to manage and to lead teams in a way that you can have different expertise, but by understanding how to lead people within their behaviors, their needs, their emotions, you are able to manage a business, and you're able to lead a business. So the future for me, I think, is going to be around how can I lead a business by understanding the way to use the best of the capabilities of the people I'm working with, right? And I think that I'm not longer looking what's going to come for me next. I do want to stay in the EDI space for longer because I think I have discovered something that I'm very good at. And also my expertise around the business and how the business operates has given me a very good edge in the way I'm able to really make concrete actions and make a bigger momentum for D&I in our organization.
I can imagine it's a huge challenge that you're facing because I think anybody involved in the HR function, and it's always a tough role to play because you're trying to work and manage people's feelings and emotions a lot of the time, and especially when it comes to things like diversity and inclusion or sustainability and those types of things. It's often not something that you're going to change people's attitudes on overnight. It takes a lot of time, and so to move from a sales and marketing type background where, if you're working with a product or service that doesn't have its own opinion or doesn't have its own thoughts and feelings, to then going into D&I where a HR function, and especially the D&I area where there's thoughts and feelings everywhere, that must have been a huge challenge. I mean, would you say that that was the biggest challenge you faced, or was that just a small part of it?
Well, I think that it's been one of the challenges. I'm not sure if it's the biggest, but it's been for sure one of the challenges, because I was used to see results on a more immediate basis, right? When you are in front of the business, you have a sales target that you have to accomplish, and you have a limited period of time for that accomplishment. However, when you're working with the culture and you're working with the people, this will take longer. And as you say, it's not a thing that happened overnight, but you have to be very constant and consistent in the way you're delivering messages and the way you're actually shaping a culture, not in the way you want to give the message, but the way the community needs to have the message delivered. And this is very good in the way that I was a customer centricity expert when I was doing marketing. So I learned to really hear the voice of the customer. And for me, the Syngenta Group employees are my internal customers. So what I try to do is often listen what they need, listen how the messages resonate to them, and keep shaping them for us to be more successful in the way we present our campaigns or the way we present initiatives. I think that working with people has a long-term benefit, but also it has been quite surprising after several of the presentations I have given or the campaigns we have delivered, the amount of emails or messages that just come to me telling me how we help our employees, or how they were facing a situation with their relatives or with their direct reports, and how the elements, the tools, or the knowledge that we just brought to them had helped them. So that immediate response of the public is really gratifying, because you get to see that the actions you are doing, it doesn't matter if they're impacting a huge amount of people, but just by knowing that someone was able to act upon what you just said, it's something that has changed my life in many ways. And I think this is one of the things I wake up every day for, just to keep helping some leaders to manage teams, just to keep helping some employees deal with situations like my son just came out of the closet. And if I had not heard this webinar, this could have been a different situation in my family. Now we're more united, and now we're actually helping him be more secure about himself. So these are the kind of messages that I keep listening. But as I said, it's just a matter of listening your community and the people you're working for, and being able to deliver the message at the right moment of their journey, because we're all on different D&I journeys, and we need to understand that not everyone is as progressive as other people, and some people are just coming out of that shell where they were educated by a very traditional system, and sometimes concepts in D&I are quite specific, and it could be sometimes even quite aggressive. So we just need to be able to understand how to deliver the messages, and by doing that, I'm sure it's easier to change and shape the culture in the right way, or in the way that we believe will be more inclusive for everyone.
Hi everybody, it's Paul Thomas here. I hope that you're well and you're enjoying the podcast so far. Thank you once again for your continued support listening to the podcast. I just wanted to break into the recording to talk to you about a really exciting partnership that EMEA Recruitment has along with Operation Smile. And as founder of EMEA Recruitment, it's an honour and a privilege to announce this partnership. Personally, I was born with a cleft lip and palate, so the mission of Operation Smile is something that I have a strong personal connection with. It's not an understatement to say that the dentists and surgeons that helped me were life changers. It's not only about the actual operations that take place, the support and care post and pre-operation are beyond value, and from personal experience I can only say that I'd not be the confident, happy person I am today without this support. I want to help children experience the support and care and skill that I experienced on my journey, and hope that we can do this along with Operation Smile. Every 3 minutes, a child is born with a cleft lip or cleft palate, and the mission of Operation Smile is to provide help and support to these children through providing 6,000 medical volunteers across 80 countries who are dedicated to help these children with facial conditions, most commonly cleft lip and cleft palate. More than 200,000 children are born with a cleft every year, and they are often unable to speak, eat, socialize, or even smile. However, it can take as little as 45 minutes and cost just €180 or 182 francs for Operation Smile to provide the child with life-changing surgery. Now, in partnership with Operation Smile, EMEA Recruitment is raising valuable funds and aiming to create 100 new smiles to support the organisation to provide free surgeries for children and young adults all over the world. Please help us by donating through the link in the bio or get in touch to see how your company can help get involved too. For the moment, I'll leave you to carry on listening to the rest of the podcast, but if there's anything I can do in terms of answering any questions or finding out how you can help and support EMEA Recruitment and Operation Smile, then please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you once again and enjoy the rest of the podcast.
Well, it's interesting because, I mean, that leads me on to a question about actually how you then embrace the diversity and drive the cultural change in the team, because I think, as you mentioned there and earlier on as well in the conversation, you're a team leader, you enjoy developing people, you like helping people and staying consistent with the message through listening techniques as well. So all the things you mentioned are they're textbook examples actually of how to do your job in the best way possible. And I just thought I'd ask you actually then to move on from that, how you then drive the diversity and cultural change within the team.
Yes, well, working with teams can be one of the best experiences or can be a very big challenge, depending the approach that every leader takes. For me, what has been successful is to really get to know my team, to understand their passions, to understand their capabilities, understand their areas of opportunities for us to develop together, but also understand sometimes how they learn, sometimes what are their professional goals, and help them meet them, right? I do believe that throughout my career, and just I can recall my first years of working, I was very outgoing, I was very proactive, and sometimes this proactiveness was not what my manager was expecting, right? Or they couldn't manage this proactiveness in the right way, because of course there's a hierarchy and there's a system, and we all need to be able to align to that ecosystem where we are. And corporations have been evolving with the generations. So nowadays, working with teams have to be in a position where you're very open to listen what they have to say. And also, I do believe a very important part is the development part, where sometimes you're working with very experienced professionals and they know how to run their business very well, but sometimes they don't know how to manage their communication, or they don't know how to manage understanding new ways of working and those transformations that are quite important nowadays in all businesses regarding efficiency or lean processes or just bringing technology. So I think that by understanding all those situations within the individual, it's a very helpful way for you to establish not only a professional connection, but a personal link where your team understands that you are here for their, and the thing you care the most is their development, no matter if it's with you in the same team, with other area, or even in another company. Because all as employees, we have had a past. We are coming from different companies, and probably we will go to different companies. So it's important to understand that we're all in the same corporate journey when we're talking about multinationals, and that we're also all wanting to meet some goals and to reach our goals for us to have a better living. And that's probably considering families, social, or work-wise. So for me, the important part is just to have that connection where I understand how can I help, and also make them accountable of their own initiatives, give them recognition when it's needed, give them the credit when they have worked for it, and just make sure that everyone understands that we are part of a team. And if the team thrives, the leader will thrive, but also the members of the team. So it's not about who can do better. It's about how can we all work better.
And what's interesting there is you mentioned a bit about the management style and how that has evolved over time. So actually, I think now a much better situation than we had, 10, 15, 20 years ago in the whole management style approach generally in multinationals. But what about on the diversity and inclusion side of things? Because, how do you think that has evolved over time? And, where do you think the current thinking about diversity and inclusion is at this stage?
Well, I can really speak about D&I in the way I have worked around our organization. And I think we're in this very important momentum of the way we are establishing new concepts of the workplace and the way we work with very unique people. As you mentioned, in the past, diversity and inclusion was not really a important topic. It was something that started as a trend. Then it's something that really showed results and that really showcase the way our society is now transforming in accepting people as they are. However, I think there's still some barriers to this initiative where we are in a moment where still 4 or 5 generations are still working together. And if we think about baby boomers and Generation X, they are still quite traditional and they probably are still quite resistant about different changes that the world has taken. And one of them is probably the way the LGBTQIA plus community has been more visible and more vocal. Other has to be with the way we are speaking about mental health, and we're understanding that it's not about time, but it's about objectives, the journey during the work time. And then we have Generation Y and Generation Z, where it's all about specific moments of life and a specific way of doing things and expressing, and also being more vocal when they don't agree with a system, or just having the ability to select to work anywhere in the world, because now we have remote working, and I don't really see a boss as an authority figure, but someone that should be helping me to thrive. So having this mixture of social situations and then workplace new behaviors and conducts and generations working between them just takes us to a place in D&I where we have to be very careful in the way we establish it. Diversity and inclusion is not only about understanding the underrepresented groups, but for me, it's also about understanding how the most represented group is living this transition, and how can we help the people that are probably in an early stage of their journey to really understand the benefits, not only for the business, but for the interaction for everyone. And that not because you accept a population that is very different than yours, you are not meeting your values, or you are or you're not being honest to yourself. It's more about how I show people that by being accepting to others and by also letting other people express themselves just as they are, you can bring more harmony to the workplace. And having that harmony in the workplace will also result in better outcomes for the business. And at the end of the day, establishing D&I in a business is for us to bring the best talent, and just with the best talent, we'll have the best results. So at the end of the day, it's a cycle where it's all about understanding what's the final outcome and purpose, which is just bringing a better workplace for everyone. And that way, everyone can bring their best selves. And with that, we can have the best results. So it's just like to making those connections, what I will try to establish all the time when explaining EDI to people.
Mm. No, and I think that you mentioned something interesting around bringing your best self into work. And often, what I would characterize as bringing your best self into a role. I think a big part of it, as you've highlighted in what you've been saying so far, is if you've got that passion and the drive for your job, then actually your job doesn't feel like a job anymore. You enjoy it, and then obviously that has a big impact on bringing your best self into your work. And so the question I was going to ask, I guess it's sort of related a bit to career, but it's also related to your own background as well. Because I guess if there's people listening to this thinking they'd like to do what you've done, they like the idea of going into a diversity and inclusion role, but there's not that role in the business at the moment to apply for, because we know a lot of sort of medium size or especially smaller companies, they don't have a role specifically called diversity and inclusion leader. And even some larger companies don't necessarily have that as well. It's tied into other areas. So I was kind of wondering your advice, really, if people are listening to this thinking they'd love to do what you did and make that move into a D&I role, what is something you think they can do to actually move into that kind of role, or almost kind of create that role for themselves in the business?
Yes, Paul, I think we have to see the way people interact with D&I without considering the role, because at the end of the day, there will be only one role leading the D&I strategy of the business, right? And for that, it comes a full structure. But I think we have to connect more in the way that how can I be accountable and responsible for the D&I strategy at my company, right? And I can remember when I first joined Syngenta, I was part of the D&I Council for Latin America North, right? At the moment, we didn't have a D&I global head. We were just starting our journey, and we decided to have these councils for us to start spreading the message of equity, inclusion, and diversity. And the only way this council kept going was because the people that we were in there, we were really actually taking some actions for that. Then this D&I area started becoming more visible, and then the company actually created a structure for us to have a global head of D&I and a team working for D&I. So for me, it's if you have passion for this topic, if you want probably to change your career to go into that space, start by being responsible on the actions you do, participate to the company events, webinars, digital strategies, be vocal about D&I in your own organization or your team, be part of a council, become a champion on D&I, and then you will start seeing if you have the passion for this and how can you really create that momentum for your own population, and how will you really resonate for you when you have to speak up about different matters in the company. And as I said, it has been a great change of careers coming to this space, but also it has been a lot of learning. And also it has been a very important way to focus myself to keep going, because at the end of the day, sometimes you are working to shape a culture. And when you're shaping a culture, that means that not all the elements of the culture are in the same place. So it can be a bit frustrating sometimes when you want things to, like people to understand your message as you're trying to say it, and then it doesn't resonate. So you have also to have very, like a good amount of tolerance. You have to be very creative, and also you have to keep waking up every day thinking, how will I be able to make this strategy happen without having natural resistance of the system? So just to answer your question, I think you can start by becoming a champion of D&I in your company and start getting involved. And nowadays, it's very common that companies will have online training and will have like self-development programs. And I have seen it that we try too much to make sure that our community start engaging with these trainings, but it seems to me that sometimes we are so busy with our day-to-day that we don't get the time to do this. So if you're really passionate about D&I, take the time to do it, because the numbers reflect in bigger initiatives, bigger budgets, bigger teams for us to be able to develop these areas. And only by that, D&I will be strong enough in the companies for them to need an element that is being paid to develop this functional area.
The things you mentioned there about numbers and analyzing success through that. So, I mean, I guess it's difficult to do in any human resources related subject, but clearly the numbers are available to show the developments and the improvements that are being made in these steps. And I mean, obviously, we all have the impact of BI and data on our lives, both at work and at home as well. And I just wondered how you feel diversity and inclusion generally is going to develop and benefit from the added information that BI and data can bring.
Yeah, so I do believe that BI and data are very important for any functional area, and for D&I is as important as for any other one. Right now in the Syngenta group, we are trying to find different KPIs for us to measure progress and success. In our company, we don't believe in targets, so we try not to establish quotas for anything. However, we believe in constant measurement. So right now, globally, the one metric that we are allowed to use is gender balance, which is a very good way for us to understand how well are we doing when we talk about diversity, right? But for me, sometimes it's not only how you measure diversity, but how you measure inclusion. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to open this huge door to diversity and then not being able to retain the people because the inclusion is not yet there. So right now we are trying to understand our metrics in different ways. We created last year a D&I strategic framework, which includes 5 strategic pillars, that have about 23 areas of work, and each of those areas of work have a KPI, right? So we're building a D&I dashboard where we can measure gender balance, gender pay gap, but also we're measuring how many people are taking the online trainings that we have, where we're talking about gender diversity, generation diversity. We have a toolkit for managers, and everything that we do in D&I is on voluntary basis. So just by understanding these numbers, we're able to see which topics resonate the most with our community and which online trainings are the most interesting. Also, something that we're doing is measuring the engagement that we have for our online global webinars. How many people are connecting? I can tell you that for Inclusion Week, we had 10,000 participants in a 4-day event. Just for our latest webinar on Pride, we had 2,850 participants. And then also what we do is we try to make digital challenge where we use our specific hashtag, which is everyone counts. And with that, we look for metrics, for digital metrics regarding number of comments, number of people resharing posts, number of people talking about the specific topic. And for example, I was just telling my coming out story and I was able to reach out to 22,000 views. Right. So by understanding the different numbers, being creative in the way you can reach out and see how much people are really listening or viewing you or talking about D&I is very important. But also right now we're working in a pilot, specifically with our Brazilian team, for us to have a self-identification initiative where people can just disclaim themselves and tell us if they have any kind of disabilities. We have added more gender categories to our gender question, where we include transgender, non-binary, or I prefer not to answer. And also we are looking to pilot questions regarding if you're part of the LGBT community, not as an ally, and also to ask about race and ethnicity. Right now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but there are only very few countries where you are allowed to answer these questions regarding GDPR, data privacy. So now we're trying to work on a self-identification model for us to really understand how is our community, how diverse is our community. Not because we want to know the individual name of the people, but we need to know the aggregated numbers for us to keep working in programs that benefit this underrepresented population, for us to bring different health and financial benefits to underrepresented groups that right now are not so visible. So I think this is important for our audience to know that when a company is asking for some self-identification question, it is important for you to trust the system, that this is for you to have a different benefit, but not for you to be identified as an individual. And I think that by having these programs, we will be able to have a better targeted messages for these underrepresented groups, better programs. Our ERGs will be able to grow, and also will be able to have a better sponsorship. So the idea is for us to keep bringing data in everything we do, because just by identifying how popular the D&I actions are, we are able to present to our leaders, to keep presenting to our leaders the importance of keep investing in this area, which is quite important right now for companies to be sustainable across generations, like during the time, and also to bring better results keep, retain, develop talent in the different geographies where we are.
No, it's really interesting. I mean, you mentioned the retention of people a few times in that answer. And I mean, you can see, Syngenta's record in this is very strong. It's improved hugely over the last 20 years. So it shows that the work that yourself and your colleagues in the business are doing is definitely working, because the retention figures are, right up there with some of the other great companies in Switzerland as well. And I think, like with everything like this, when there's any change going on in in a environment or within a company, it obviously there's always going to be people resistant to the change, or people who take longer to embrace the change than others. And I thought I'd just ask you a question about how you might deal with a scenario where it was clear that a conversation between colleagues was offensive to others. If you were walking past and you heard a conversation that was really not acceptable, kind of how you would deal with that, because I know that that's something that a lot of managers struggle with. Is actually, well, where is the gray area? What is right? What is wrong? I mean, obviously you have the extremes, but then there's the gray areas in the middle that it could be offensive to some people, but not to others. And I know it's a question that some people in network would like me to ask you is how do you kind of deal with that? If you do hear something in the office, how do you actually then deal with that situation, especially with you being so kind of passionate and enthusiastic about the subject? It must be quite hard to kind of keep consistent and keep calm in that situation, I guess.
Yes, it's a very good question, because there are many situations where we really need to understand the context of the conversation and really where is the people that made the comment coming from, right? It could be a completely offensive comment with a very aggressive intention. And for that, in Syngenta Group, we have a zero policy on harassment, bullying, and discrimination. But sometimes it's just a matter of fact that people are not well aware of the way they need to refer to other people. And this is where we need to bring training into place, and where you have to recommend people to just understand that what they are saying is not in the correct side of the question, and that they need to really make sure they are educating themselves not to be offensive. Also, sometimes it happened a lot with the LGBTQI population, where people, or also even with different races, ethnicities, where people just don't know and they are asking questions. And I think that when people are asking questions, you have to understand the energy and the intention. When they're asking questions, it's because they care and they want to learn and they want to stop making mistakes. But something that we've been working a lot in Syngenta Group regarding this situation is promoting and speaking up culture, where if you listen or you see anything that is wrong, we recommend them to, in the moment, say something, and also to report. We have different channels for people to feel safe when reporting, and also all our HR business partners and our business leaders are very aware that this is one of our main priorities, to avoid micro inequities, and also, of course, to avoid any kind of aggressions, verbally or physically, to any of our employees. The way I will address will be just talk to the individual at the spot and just ask him or her what they mean, and if there's anything they need to understand. If I see that they are coming from a very dark place where they are trying to be offensive, I will just take it to a bigger scenario where I would involve HRBPs and business leaders for them to understand that what they did was not correct. If they are in a moment where they were not aware or it was just a bias, I will explain the situation. And also I would recommend some of the trainings that we have in place for them to be more aware of their words and their actions.
No, it's really interesting. And I think, obviously a lot of the discussion we've had so far has been about yourself and how you can hopefully inspire people in the D&I field, and to get interested in this area and the benefits of following your passion and drive in your career as well. And I thought the last question to ask you would be almost on the other side of that. So as much as you're kind of influencing people now, I didn't know if there was any people in your life and career who've really influenced you that you'd really like to highlight today.
Yes. Of course, first I can think of is my father. Well, both my father and my mother, they raised me trying to make a man that was very humble and also very respectful about everyone. In Mexico, when I was growing up, as you know, Mexico is a very classist country where you can find many different platforms, economic platforms where people come from. And also this can bring a certain kind of discrimination toward people with a different or a lower economic status. So my father was always very respectful about everyone. And he taught me that one of the best qualities of a person is being able to interact with everyone without caring where they were coming from or what they have. So he had always influenced the way I behave and also the way I act. I have not always been as compassionate as I am now. During my teenage years, probably when I was learning who I wanted to be and also being in the closet, probably I projected my insecurities by not being as open or as welcoming to certain groups of people. And I think my dad was one of the things that always corrected me. Also, someone that I can mention is my current boss, Kamali Rajesh. She is our head of people, organization and development. And I have learned a lot of her on how we need to be appreciative of the simple things and how living a simple life can be as rewarding as, or even more rewarding than living a complex life or with our life with a lot of material like things, like having a better house, having a better car. Just this simplicity and understanding the real values of what we should appreciate in our lives and in our world has been really influencing for me because I have come to learn a completely different perspective, right? She's from the India, I'm from Mexico. We're both living in Switzerland. And these different points of view have really helped me expand and grow in the way I now tackle different situations. And now I understand the way I live and the way I want to keep bringing something to the table for my community and my society. And finally, more in my professional way, I can think about Tim Cook. He is the CEO of Apple, the first CEO to be openly gay. And I think because that took a lot of courage, right? Being in a corporate system, specifically during those times, was not the easiest. And he just created a milestone for gay professionals like me to be able to be open of who you are and who you love, and also be completely professional and be very capable to lead a huge business, bring technology, and also bring different perspectives of making things and thinking with a huge scope and also with a great message.
No, I mean, it's great to hear three really inspirational people there, all for very different reasons as well. And I was listening to what you were saying about your current manager and how she sort of emphasized keeping things simple, enjoying the simple things in life. And that, I mean, that's one of the things that I think has been a positive almost of a lot of people's experience of the whole COVID situation. People have sort of evaluated what really is important to them. The flexibility now, being able to work from home, means able to spend more time with partners, with children, with pets, whatever it is. And people, I think generally are a lot more aware of actually what makes them happy now. And it's not, it's not money. Money can only buy you happiness to a certain point, and then after a certain point, you don't get happier the more money you earn. And I think it's that seems to be one of the things that really a lot of people in my network and previous guests have kind of highlighted as well. So it's quite interesting the point you made there as well, Ruben. And I know, obviously, one of the things that we've talked a lot about on previous podcasts is time management. So I'm conscious of the fact that we're getting towards the end of the podcast now, and I know you've got another meeting to head to. So I'll stick with the time management advice I've been getting from everybody and close off the podcast now. But all I'd say is it's been an amazing conversation with you. I've really enjoyed going through all the questions, and it's just lovely to speak to someone who's got that real drive and enthusiasm for the job that they're doing, you know, who took the risk in many ways to go into this career path, and the value that you bring to the business, but also the value that the business and the role it is bringing to yourself and your life. You know, it's very inspirational. And I think, you know, obviously, being involved in recruitment, you know, what we see is there's not at the moment a career path in diversity and inclusion yet, because it's still a relatively early discipline, but you can also see the rewards that you get from taking that route, and especially if it's something you're really driven by, it's clear you're a great example of the benefits it can bring. So I really appreciate you running through this, and I know the network will take a lot from it as well. And I mean, I suppose to that end, if any of the network wants to reach out to you and make an introduction, what's the easiest way they can do that?
Yes, thank you, Paul, for all the things that you say. I really enjoy when people can recognize my passion, because it's something that I really invest in everything I do, and I try to do everything in my job and in my way of living with a lot of heart, and just knowing that this could change life for many people, and it's changing my life, and this makes me very, very happy. And yes, if any of the audience and your network want to reach out to me, just look for me in LinkedIn. You can look me as Rubén Alejandro, and then if you cannot find me, just add Syngenta, and I'm sure I will appear in your search.
No, that's great. And what we'll do, we'll make sure we put a link to your profile on the podcast promotions on LinkedIn as well, to make it easy for people to do that. So yeah, huge thanks, Ruben. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the week in the heat over there, and then we'll obviously keep in touch.
For sure. Thank you, Paul. And thank you to all your audience to listen to me and to you throughout all this hour. Have a great day.
Thanks, Ruben. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. If you'd like to reach out to Paul or myself, please feel free to send a connection through on LinkedIn. And if you'd like to listen to previous episodes of the podcast, you can find them all at our website, www.emearecruitment.eu.